you. First, I would like to thank Ella and the organizer to invite me for the gift summit. This is about the Christmas season, so we do have expecting more gifts coming from the God or from Santa. I'm going to talk about medical imaging. This is something echo the Professor Peter Fresco's talk about the medical data. Okay, first when we talk about medical imaging, we have to review what is the trend in the global healthcare reform, which we usually describe as a 4P medicine: preventive, predictive, personal, and participation. I'm going to talk about each of those sectors with a focus on the innovation. All we know, our world is shifting from treatment to the early diagnosis. Specifically today, everybody realizes in the pandemic season how important that we deliver early diagnosis, just like COVAX positive checking. I was invited when I was a Harvard professor to the World Economic Forum in Geneva to talk about digital divide. What is digital divide in healthcare? Even today, we are living in a world with population 7 billion. However, 4 billion people never took any X-ray check. So all of our medical imaging service is only provided to the rich people, okay, which is also addressed by Peter this morning. So my question is very simple. How we can deliver the affordable healthcare to the global everybody? So we call it imaging for all. Let me show you 2 examples. The most killing illness or disease is cancer. Here we show a huge tumor cancer in an old patient in a developing world. This cancer almost as big as an egg. Unfortunately, or we should say, fortunately in the United States, we don't see this kind of thing anymore. Because early diagnosis, you can have an annual check. You don't wait until the tumor develops into a penocyte, you can do the treatment. But around the world, we still have so many people who never took MRI, CT, or DS scan. Okay, unfortunately, the person died. This is diagnosed in Indonesia with our MRI system. The second case is related to cardiovascular disease, where we again using MRI, we can actually check the blood vessel. This is on the brain, and we can see the narrow artery, not so clear in the imaging. But with early diagnosis, the patient is saved. So let me kind of emphasize, early diagnosis was saving life. That's period. That's why I was a professor at EE. Now we're jumping to the medical. We try to provide digital medical service to everybody. So here's my talk. First, we can talk about post-pandemic era, how we deliver imaging service, which is basically using future or current AI technology. We call it teleimaging. Second, we can address the special need for our baby, for the woman health, as well as for all the elderly people who are living in the aging society. The last one, of course, relates to our brain, because whether you can talk about AI or AR, everything relates to neural network. So we are talking about more on the neuroimaging. Again, the question is, we have 2 bottlenecks. Number 1 is the whole industry is monopolized by few companies. Everybody knows who they are. Because of that, the service for medical imaging is very expensive. I want to talk about it later on. Second, we're actually lacking our professional in the radiology society. Okay, how we can solve those things? First of all, if we can bring down the cost, 80% down, we'll be able to deliver the digital service to everybody. So our industry actually is $1 trillion industry for service, but it's all, of course, income to the major hospital. Now, here come to the change. Pandemic, many people are afraid to go to hospital. So during the pandemic time, this is a McKinsey report. Basically said, online diagnosis or online consulting increased by 38 times, not a percentage. Why? Again, people are afraid to go to the hospital. I'll give another issue. At the same time, the people are no longer go to hospital as annual regular check. For example, breast cancer screening. So a lot of people are worried after these 2 years, a lot of cancer were recurring because you don't have a check anymore. And at the same time, we are in the business world today. So you can see the investment on digital, or we call it online consulting or online diagnosis, actually doubled in the last 18 months. Those are the trends. How we can deliver a service in this kind of type of season. This is a buzzy word called healthcare or telehealth or care at home. Some people even call hospital at home. Okay, you can say everybody can hook up the phone online, talk to a doctor, that's fine. But can we talk to a doctor, get an X-ray checked? You still need your body go to a machine. So how can we deliver the image service to every person in the community? That's what we call hospital in community. Here we develop a mobile system, not an ambulance. Just drive to any place. Whoever have order through your application on your cell phone, who can deliver. And on the right, there's a statistic show during the time of telehealthcare usage, regardless of man or woman, and what kind of ratio you have, and what kind of age you have, everybody is using. And of course, especially for older people. Here, we develop a system called MMRS, Mobile Medical Imaging System. We're basically putting a DR or any kind of machine into a small chunk, and it drives to everybody, every community. During the pandemic, we actually drive to a school. Why? The school are afraid everybody's student coming back. So before I allow them back to the school, we have an X-ray check. How fast? 45 seconds per person. And then every day, one machine, we can image 1,000 students. I'm going to talk about data later on. Who owns those data? That's a question to everybody today. So you have to bring costs down because you have volume. How low we can talk about? 1 coffee. So think about it. If we can deliver 1 cup of coffee pricing, then we can actually deliver the digital screening for the lung for every citizen in this planet. Of course, everything has to be done not by doctor. Why? By AI. Look at this. In the United States alone, every year we generate 60 billion images. We're not talking about data, images. Each image could have 1 gigabit. Okay? Only have 32,000 doctors or radiologists, which means each doctor, without sleeping, you have to read 6,000 images per day. Let's observe. So only solution you can do is by AI. We are talking about lots of buzzword AI. That's actually the real thing you have to use. Second, let's say if we want to deliver those service to every community, even in the United States, let's say we just do a trial, we're sending 1,000 cars. How many big data we are facing? 100 EB. Let me give another example of how big the data, or medical data in this world. So you can imagine what is the largest data center in the United States? People say Walmart, right? Let me tell you, the largest corporation called healthcare is HCA, which owns 300 plus hospitals, which means 300 plus hospital imaging centers. HCA has to replace all the data every 7 years because there's no room to put. We have to bring the issue to the IBM former CEO, but no solution yet. So here I'm at Silicon Valley stage. I'm a call for help. Okay, so how can store all those 1,000 cars data, which we go to working with Harvard School of Public Health to deliver those systems for service next year. But the question is, where are we going to store those data? So one is reading, second is storage. That's a big data issue. Okay, speaking of data, speaking of human data, this is more political things today. So I'm not going to talk about human. I'm talking about the pet. I'll be talking about the dog's data, where we did a small trial which linked 50 hospitals, a pet hospital in China, with a real-time each machine. Here is the short dynamics, okay? We actually occupy the largest share in China for the dog and cat MR center. And we found out about 85% of dogs have issue on the brain and the spine, which is very similar to human. Okay? And we can do all the things in simultaneous and real time. And also, we're expecting using AR to read those dogs. By the way, everybody can understand and to see what is this animal or this pet on the left. Number one animal or pet is dog. Number two is cat. What is number three? Which is shown here. That's the imaging down. That's a tumor inside. That's turtle. Okay, that's number three people are raising at home. So those are the data we are talking about. We're not talking about a human. We're talking about other things also, but the living. So in conclusion, my first part, we are working with Harvard School of Public Health and a few other organizations to launch a global imaging service program called Initiative, and to try to addressing the issue how to provide cost-effective, affordable, particularly accessible digital imaging service to everybody in this planet. Second part, I'm going to talk about the industrial trend and the innovation towards the service on a special and dedicated market. For example, can we build a system to addressing the needs for baby, addressing the needs for our women, healthcare. I used to work as a professor radiology at the Brigham Women Hospital, so we are putting children first, baby first, and your wife first, second, and our man will be the last. Okay? Let's see how we go. First, this is very recent. There's a company called Hyperfine, and maybe also another company in Silicon Valley, who are building portable MR. So our agenda is trying to make the machine smaller, portable, and movable, and can install any special department in each hospital. By the way, this company will go IPO soon. And the second is the baby. Here we show that we developed the world's first neonatal MR with a target of putting our 4,000 NICUs, intensive care units for baby or for neonates, in United States and in European, and also 2,000 in Asia. And this system, if I would describe, very simple, it is smaller, lighter, faster, most important, safer for baby. Okay? Now, how important for our baby care? Let me show you what is called personal. This is a video showing MRI imaging of a baby before even birth. That's what we were talking about, how to deliver personal data. Think about every birthday of these kids, you can show this video, that's you, inside the mother's womb. Okay, let's also have a twin. All these things 10 years, 20 years ago is impossible. Today, it's possible. But again, this is a huge data set that we have to face, how to install, how to transfer, and this is something, again, I will call for help. Second part is for women. Over the years, everybody knows that you go to mammography to have annual breast check. In the mammography check, the issue is that it's not so accurate. MR actually has more accurate and non-radiative. But unfortunately, because MR is more expensive, so people tend still using the X-ray based memo. Let me tell you, there's a statistic study over 11,000 women. If you take a mammography over 20 years, your chance of getting breast cancer is increased by 25 times. Okay? This is published in 2014. Okay, it's a long time ago. So what do? We try to develop an MRI, which is non-radiative, and you can repeat it. You can even check your breast every month. The trouble is we have to bring the cost down again. So if we bring the cost down, you can coverage everybody, and you can imagine in the future, go to a shopping mall, you get a dental check, you get an eye check, you get an ear check, also you have a breast check. That's the society we're going to go living with. Particularly, as I mentioned, 80% of women no longer go to any check anymore because of the pandemic. So those things will happen very soon. Of course, this is still in the United States. We have 80% of the population, women, already covered. But what about India? What about Indonesia? What about China? Only 1% women going to the annual breast check. That's why the breast cancer is still #1 killer for women globally. We need early diagnosis again. Of course, all this imaging has to be done by AI. So this is our own AI developed. So every imaging is AI reading. Okay, after the woman, let's talk about, I'm getting older too, maybe you too, right? How we address our elderly people, our brain deteriorates. We are getting disease like Alzheimer's. So here, I'm showing the last part, which is neuroimaging. We are talking about from neuron to the brain. Why important? First of all, this is big science. As we all know, United States, European, Japan, every country has a human brain project a couple of years ago with the goal to solve who we are while we are thinking. I know it's a late afternoon, everybody go to sleep, but I can read your mind. Okay, so here's the big science related to all the function of our brain. How big science we talk about? This is the future MR machine for brain research. That's 12 Tesla. What is Tesla? It's not a Tesla car. It's the magnetic field units. Okay, I just named a Tesla person. Here is the Neurospin building in the European Union. And frankly speaking, US now is behind Europe. They are building 12 Tesla systems with the aiming for neuron study. Machine is bigger than aircraft. You can see the building. Okay, how can we using this kind of system? This is more on the clinical application. We can provide diagnosis of brain disease, specifically stroke, which is a timely important in time Alzheimer's disease, with 1.5% of the population today already developed Alzheimer's disease. And then with the resolution today, we're talking about 100 micron. You know, if we go to hospital, take a 3 Tesla MRI, their resolution is 0.5 millimeter. Now, if we take my word, you can think about, if we do the same thing with the slice in, which means those imaging volume or data, which will be 10 times than the regular 3T. So we have issue back to the point how we can install such big data. Here we show our disruptive technology. Actually, this is part of my PhD thesis back to Columbia. That we develop a new sensor such that make MRI to read, to see more clearly, more precisely. With the resolution, can increase imaging to noise ratio by factor 200, 300 improve, but just change the detector part. So we call it high temperature superconducting RF coil. The next is not just coil. We have to change the whole system. So just like you used to use a gasoline car, today going to e-car, we have to change the superconducting magnet inside MR today. Those magnets material today cannot be used if we build 10 Tesla or above. So we are in the transition into the new technology. So our company has a patent called Super MR, where we replace every part into a high temperature superconductor component. With that, you can actually getting the high resolution with the whole target is try to getting the resolution down to 10 micron. What's that mean? See the single neuron. Everybody know how important. Once you see single neuron live, means you can study the neuron network, neuron cluster, then you can solve all the things related to the real neuron network, not the artificial one. And we are working with Harvard. Mass General has tried to build the world's first 14 Tesla, so put the US back again as number one to competing with European system, okay? And how big is this? Look at the weight, 180 tons. I'm just talking about making portable, but on the other hand of the spectrum, we are making the largest system in order to getting a neuron. Also, the last one related to that. We're not just talking about resolution, we're also talking about specification. That MR actually is a spectrum. You can study the chemical, you can study the molecular. So we have a terminology called NonProton Imaging. In other words, when you go to MR scan, we are using your water molecule in the body. But what about other nuclei in our body? For example, salt, which is sodium. And it's been studied that using a sodium, we can actually tracing the cancer. In other words, sodium image could be a biomarker in the future. And we can no longer need go into second checking the cancer tissue with so-called PET, which is radioactive and harmful. So we're currently working with several leading institutes to work on the non-proton imaging. This is all the publication. Now, the last one related to that is a new term, which is the most hot topic in the neuroscience, called functional MRI, which can clinically study the Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, all the publication actually this month or last month in Nature Science. Okay? But what I'm going to show you a little bit more is what about others? Here we show, we call this is actually Bill Gates' talk. in the couple of years ago in San Francisco, JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. He showed the stung child and developed child brain with MRI. And then there's a naturally see why they cannot grow up with the average height, because the brain function also indicate. Okay, and the right side is our own work related to the acupuncture, which is trigger motion cortex as well as the visual cortex. So we can study the link between the acupoints on human body, on our body, with the motion and the visual. Those are all published. Now, here comes the funny part. With this technology, today, we can actually read everybody's mind in real time, in the real world. How? Functional MRI or MEG mapping, all these things happening in the recent years. And also, we can study why you sleep, why you get angry. Of course, those are not good topics. The good topics are why we kiss. Well, there's scientific proof why you kiss, or what's the feeling when you kiss. Okay, the last one. Everybody go to the airport, we're waiting on the line, get the airbag checked, get your bag checked. What about the future? Future, we don't check your bag, we check your brain. If we find you suspicious, you cannot get on board, that's all. We're not talking about future, we're talking about very soon, okay? How we can do that? It's my last page. We have to integrate imaging with AI and AR. You know, I used to work with IBM when I was Columbia faculty. We're talking about quantum computing. We're talking about lots of things. There's one thing, we're working on the 3D rendering group of software. You know what they're doing? They're going to the Hollywood to make all the movies. On the movie, as like an Iron Man, you put your hands in, you take the heart out. That's virtual. But we have to deal with the patient every day. We are talking about a real replacement of the brain and replacement of parts of our body. You have to be so accurate. Otherwise, when you come out, you are no longer you. You are someone else. So with that, that's the future medical imaging. We have to combine AR and AR. I think also we need everybody's help, particularly in the Silicon Valley. Thank you very much.